Welcome, faithful listeners, to another Brew Ink Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of Brew Ink Podcast. This is episode 11. We want to welcome you, faithful listeners, back. We are here with a large table of people, so we're going to do things a little bit different. We're going to give you guys some kind of pointers, how maybe we write and what inspires us and things that help us along our path as a journey, rather than giving you updates. Our updates are going to switch to being every other Monday on our Facebook Live. So if you want to catch up with what we've been doing, what we've been writing, what we've been watching, what inspires us, come and catch us 8 p.m. on every Monday, and we'll be happy to see you there and interact with us. Send us some likes and messages, and as always, you can catch us on anything where you listen to your podcast, or go to www.brewandink.com, and there you can find the blog. You can read our story, you can listen to the podcast, and catch up to where we're at. If you're listening to episode 11 as your first episode, you can go back to episode 1. What we're doing here is we're telling a story, and we're giving you guys control as to where it's going. You have the choice at the end of each episode to vote. We have about a week for you guys to vote on what we are writing next. And tonight, we're here with Britt, Evie, Bill, Katie, myself, Steven, and Sarah. And we also have a special guest, a little friend of Evie's.
A little friend, our little junior writer.
Yeah.
This is Gracie. Gracie, say hi.
Hi.
Gracie is my stepdaughter and to me, my daughter, and has a love for writing and decided to last minute beg to come and sit in. So.
And we were happy to have her.
Well, she is also a big fan of the podcast, by the way.
Yes.
She's like our first voice.
She was very angry with me the other night when we went to the movie that I killed off Carl Jr. And it's a sign of a good writer when you can just piss people off a lot. One way or another, you got them involved. So just real quickly, I just want to give a little update on this. We have almost 500 listens on the last episode. It's great, even though I think there were some kind of hiccups there at the beginning. And just really, guys, we really need you to vote. We really need you to like, share, rate, whatever you do. I think someone told me they listened to us on Overwatch. I was like, I don't even know what that is.
I didn't know we were there.
But I guess it's some sort of like, I guess you
catch-all.
Yeah, it's like a catch-all for all these other sources and stuff.
Okay.
Probably the NSA.
So who knows what it is?
Most likely.
So yeah, just vote and share and get involved, man. Every Monday night on Facebook Live, ask us some questions and just kind of get involved, because that's we're going to talk about writing prompts tonight. All right,
yeah.
and so that's what's kind of what this podcast is. So as we get started, this is part of what we're doing here as writers is to be put in a situation to have to write something quickly with limitations, be given a story, and go. And that's practice for us as writers, and that's a very important part of who we are as authors and creators. And so we really need your help. That's what I'm trying to say. We need your help.
And so our topic for tonight, as he mentioned, is writing prompts. And you may ask yourself, what is a writing prompt? The kind of basic definition is something that's going to force you to write something that maybe you're not comfortable, or help you start writing. If we're sitting there looking at a blank page, it's something to prompt you into what you're going to write about, or maybe even you're on completely left field, but because you started writing about this one thing, it got you thinking about what you want to write about.
Yeah, for a lot of writers, they complain about writer's block. Right. And so writing prompts are something that if you're sitting there and you have writer's block, these are ways to continue writing. So even when you don't think you have something to write, or you don't feel like you can write that day, of something like this kind of can kickstart some things.
And Sarah, you mentioned in one of our Facebook Lives kind of a writing prompt that you like to use.
Yeah. It's 3 words, and I have a little game that I got from a friend. So it's called Paint Chip Poetry, but each little piece of card has a word on it, and I'll just randomly choose 3 words, and then I'll incorporate them into a story. You could also choose from a list, or you could just like open the dictionary or something, but just the fact that it's random, and because maybe these are words I would never put together, I find that it stretches me really in a good way for writing.
Yeah, I have a game that's kind of like that called Story Cubes, and they're really fun. They come with like 9 different dice, and each dice has a bunch of different pictures on it which represent a person, place, or thing, or an action. And you just roll them out, and then you can, for yourself, you can take it and go, oh, I'm going to write a story about these things. Or if as a group, each person takes a dice and uses it as the next part of a story, a continuous story, which is kind of like a game that we like to play called one-word stories, where you just take a group of people and each person gets to say a word, and you try and progress from there, and it's always funny and hilarious. But I know some other writing prompts. You have used some before?
I use tons of writing prompts. I don't do one word. It seems like that's kind of a theme as well, but I use full-on sentences. There's thousands of them on Pinterest, but I use them to trigger emotions. And so I've got hundreds of writing prompts that I have in a list based on which emotion, like for instance, I was reading one earlier that said, that sounded like a great idea yesterday, and that's just a great way to spark curiosity, and wow, that was, now I got to deal with my consequences and kind of the wild side of people. And so that's what I use to get into a creepy mindset, a happy mindset, an adventurous mindset. And then I can, even if I need to write a short story first, then I can sit down and write my story in that emotional state. So that's how I use writing prompts, to just trigger emotion.
Very nice. That's a cool way to do it. Bill, you said...
I don't, when we first brought up this topic, I said, I don't use writing prompt. But then I remembered that I pick up a Writer's Digest every once in a while, even though I don't read them up to date. And there's usually a writer's prompt in there. And sometimes I'll write a whole story based on that. And sometimes that prompt will just lead into something else, which will lead into something else, which, somehow becomes a story idea that becomes an entire book.
Yeah.
You don't know where it's going to lead you, but it does do the one thing, and that is it opens, getting an idea from somewhere else, from somebody else, opens up a door without all the baggage connected to it.
Right.
And that's the way I like to think of it, because it does. It opens up a new door to writing that doesn't have all that trash that you previously thought was connected to your idea. This is a new idea, fresh. It didn't come from a newspaper article or whatever. Well, it might have for the guy who came up with it, but wherever it came from, it's brand new to you.
Right.
You just go with it.
And that's exactly the purpose of a writer's prompt, is that it's maybe not helping you develop a whole story, but maybe it's helping you develop an idea or a part of a story, or even characters. A lot of people will take writer's prompt to take a character out of the story that they're writing and put them in a totally different situation to help them understand that character better, like what would motivate them, how would they react to this, or even to introduce themselves to a new character.
Yeah, and the writers' conference that we're going to go to in Realm Makers, they have they have like a Facebook group, and one of the things that they like to do is, what would your character do in this situation?
Right.
Like, so they'll do like they'll do some little writing prompts on the Facebook group just to get you thinking about like ways your character would react. So what if your character was on Friends or something, just really kind of
cool.
like crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like what would happen, and kind of like Bill was saying, like the point of a writer's prompt, yes, is get you out of writer's block, get you writing something, because writers write, and the more you can write, I know, Sarah, I told somebody the other day how I really liked your idea of just copying sentences, or, of writers you really like, just to get your mind thinking as a writer. But it's really to get you out of, a lot of people have writer's block because they're editing as they go. They're trying to edit, like, is this good enough? Or is that the right word? And really, when you're writing it the first time, you just have to be creative. You just got to spit it out, and you just got to feel free. And so writing prompts, because it's not your project. It's not your pet project that you're like, you feel all, you
got to be perfect on it.
It's got to be perfect. Yeah. Like, it's giving you the freedom to just be creative and silly and stupid and bad and sucks or whatever. Like,
because you're never going to put that somewhere until it becomes something really good. Yeah.
Exactly.
But when you're writing like your book, you're thinking, man, somebody's going to read this. And what if they hate it? And, you have those like kind of thoughts. And so writing prompts really help to train that creative part of your brain.
There's one Neil Gaiman does do this well, or maybe it was Malcolm Gladwell, but he'll just write like a word like bananas, and he'll write like all the things you could do or use was bananas.
I did hear about that
I
one.
like-
Who is that?
That might have been, you know what? Actually, it was A.J. Jacobs. He
Okay.
wrote all the books about like, you know, living biblically for a year, or
Oh, yeah.
he did one where he like was, I can't remember, but he does these crazy little like
Yes, I've heard of that one too.
Sounds like
challenges
great
for
prompt from
himself.
prop to theater.
So he'll sit down and just think of something, but he'll think of all the ways this thing could work in the world. That was interesting to me because I would have never thought about that. Also, in creative writing classes that I took in college, they would do something called free writing, where you would 15 minutes write consistently without a pen, like without removing your pen from the paper, not without a pen.
Oh, amazing, Sarah.
In the air.
Hard.
And it's similar to other like free writing. You know, Julia Cameron has a book called The Artist's Way, where she talks about morning pages, 3 pages of free writing, as a sort of way to get that stuff out, junk, whatever you want to call it, so that you are already primed and ready to attack your pet project or your more creative thing that you're working on. So
Right.
Yeah, and another good resource that I think we had mentioned earlier when we were talking is a podcast called
Writing Excuses, yeah.
by Brandon Sanderson, where they use a lot of writing prompts.
and there's multiple authors on there that are static, and then they have some that visit and interview, but there's always a topic, and then the end they say what the exercise is. And I mean, if we think about it like we think about physical exercise, I mean, you prep for a competition, you go to the gym, you do the things that you're supposed to do so that when you step on stage to compete in whatever event it is, and that goes with any sport. So,
Yeah.
you know, the same thing goes for writing. I mean, to get better at writing, you have to write.
You have to write.
I'm amazed. Like, for instance, writing prompts are great because they really spark your creativity. And a lot of times in our household, we figured out that, or for me, if I can think like a child, you know, they think so far outside the box. And
Right.
taking a writing prompt and going, how can you twist it? We have 3 kids. And we, in our house, do this crazy thing called, once upon a time there was a dinosaur. And his name was...
Bill.
And you start there, and every person has to just bring up another point. Yeah, I know. Bill over here is a
Bill
dinosaur.
is a dinosaur.
Bill-
Thank you very much. I was
I'm
going to
pretty
say
sure.
Esmeralda.
Fictional story.
But it's been really cool to see their creativity, where you think the story can go so much further. And by watching them think outside the box, it starts to make you think outside the box,
Right.
Yeah.
and then you become a better writer.
Yeah, there's a great video, and I can't remember the title of it, but there's a great YouTube video where they talk about the creativity of the young, and like how as you get older you become less creative, like and the reason is you start to go to school, you people give limits on you.
Yeah, you learn limits.
You
you learn to apply
limits
those limits
and rules.
everywhere.
But a kid doesn't know a limit. Like kid
Right.
knows no limits, and so their minds are. But new things, progress, new ideas come from that sort of young mind that can just think outside the box.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think you and I were talking about how with our kids, you know, we do story time and of course as an author, when my kids were little, it would be, okay, you give me the characters, you give me the problem,
Right.
you give me, and it was
You're-
always like
you're prompting them.
like, you know, Batman and Robin, and the
Lee-
playground at McDonald's is closed, or something. You know,
Liam
like
loves
whatever
Lego
it is.
Men. He loves Lego Men being the
Yeah.
characters.
And so, but still, like those kind of things where we're teaching story. You're constantly kind of evaluating and using those principles.
Right.
That we
Yeah,
use.
yeah. You'd ask him, like, I'll set up a character in a situation, and then I'll ask him, okay, you know, what's the problem? Like, what is he trying to solve, or you know, how is he going to go about this? And I think it's great. It's exactly what writing prompts
And kids
are.
love that.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kids
yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And it's such a great time with your kids, and
Yes.
Yeah.
you know, there was one road trip we took where every night they couldn't wait to go to bed, and I wasn't even smart enough to do it on purpose. Like you would think a good dad would be like, I'm going to do this on purpose, and
Right.
they'll want to go to bed, but they would want to go to bed on this road trip because it was like, Dad's going to
gonna be
continue
story
the
time.
story, because
Yeah.
it was like this epic story by the time, and they were all kind of creatures you can think of because I let them have a lot of the input.
Yeah.
And it was so fun.
I have a video of Asher when he was probably about 5. on my bed, and he's in his own world, and he's telling this constant story. Like, it started out with this one thing, and you could be in the room, not in the room. He had no clue, but he just goes off.
Yeah.
And I carry like a little tape recorder around, and sometimes we'll be in the car and we'll make up little raps like, I went to the store and I bought me a, whatever. And he's like, yeah, and then I came out and I saw this guy. And like, because it's so funny, the only problem we have is that we start laughing so much we can't keep up. It's like, but man, we'll re-listen. The other funny thing is we'll re-listen to it and then we crack up all over it.
Yeah. It's awesome.
And just some of those exercises, especially if you've got a group, and that's one of the things that is cool about us having a writers group. We can bounce ideas off of each other, we can be silly, and we can think outside the box with each other. But like one of my favorite things was like you talked about the one word kind of thing was whose line is it anyway would do that.
Yes.
And they would the UK version, which is what I know I'm old, but I kind of grew up on that on Comedy Central. But like they would give each person a different author, and they would tell the story, and they'd have to do that style. And I just thought it was so creative, and just those kind of things where you
love Who Line Is It
just
Anyway.
kind of like break out and improv. The point of a lot of this stuff, by the way, is that when we do, like we were saying, when we do get to our pet projects,
Right.
is you want your character to react.
Right.
You want to know your character so well and be so creative. That's what improv, I tell people all the time, you want to get better at character or dialogue, go
do some improv.
Go do improv.
Yeah.
Get involved in a play, act, on a play and stuff like that. Like go do acting. Like you'll learn so much about writing and reacting, because that's what acting and improv teaches you how to do. And that way your characters, like my characters have done stuff, like people will tell me, why did you kill that guy? Like, I don't know.
That's what they did.
That's what they did.
Well, improv's main thing is yes and.
Yeah.
Like, yes and then you just, you always open the door.
You always open the door for something.
Leave the door
else.
open for something to take place, which is good. I mean, it's good in general, but just as a writer, it's like, the worst thing I think for me that I can have is a closed mind, whether it be closed to ideas, closed to criticism, closed to any, because it's like that creativity can't thrive in that small environment.
When you're locked into that box and you start to stop thinking like a child.
Right.
Yeah, no, Katie, you do some D&D, and that's kind of very centered around improv in a way.
Yeah, definitely. And we're all reacting to each other. And I think what's really expanded me as a writer has been role play, so text-based collaborative story writing.
Yeah.
And just the bouncing ideas off of my RP partner has led to some incredible character development. And we'll go off and do, I don't want to write the main story today, so our characters are going to infiltrate a fancy ball.
Right.
And we'll go off that scenario, and sometimes they're silly and sometimes it's really serious. And having that back and forth, and even with off-topic scenarios, basically, has just led to so much character depth and pulling stories in different ways than anticipated.
Very cool. And then, do you ever use writing prompts in what you do, or?
Not just for side things. The only time that I've used it was for 100-word stories, and so it was a single word, and we would write something within 100 words, and we would use those to explore our characters.
Okay.
And so they weren't much. They were easy to do, very quick. But it was like, oh, you know what? Based on this prompt, this did affect my character in this way, and just building.
And for some of you listeners out there, you may not be trying to write a large episodic narrative or something that's, fiction, but writer's prompts can be really good for people that want to journal, or, just write little things here and there, and it helps you kind of have something each day that you can write. They have journals out there that has, a writer's prompt for every day, and some of them are just dumb and you don't want to do it, but a lot of them help, like when you want to continuously write each day, and you need ideas.
And that's the point. It doesn't matter if it's dumb.
Right.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's silly or stupid or weird.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about D&D stuff. It's like, I was at one the other night, and it was a couple months ago now. But the guy set up this situation, and we were all characters, and he didn't. Whatever the guy who's the leader of the
dungeon master.
Yeah, the dungeon master. He didn't make the situation clear or whatever, or didn't roll the dice for this or whatever, and so he brought the president in. And it wasn't clear what we were supposed to do, so everyone just kept trying to kill the president. And he got so upset. And we were like, well, you haven't told us why he's there. We got to do something. I mean, I got claws and he's got knives. I mean, what are we...
The default action of any dungeon party is to cause as much violence and harm as possible.
That's amazing.
Wow, a bunch of murder hobos.
And the dungeon master has to try and thwart that. Yeah.
There's one other thing I do that sometimes helps me, and that's 6-word stories. Like thinking,
Those are great.
just for fun. Sometimes I'll just be like driving down the road, or that has helped me just really hone in.
One of my favorite 6-word stories was baby clothes for sale, never worn.
Yes, that's exactly. I saw that one.
That's like the perfect
But
example.
it's interesting because those same exercises are the 6-word story often become writer's prompts for other people.
I was going to say, that could totally be a story.
Yep.
Evie had one she'd mentioned earlier. It was a good idea yesterday. That's a 6-word story.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing how one of your, your exercises can influence hundreds of people to create their own story.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was having fun with Sarah. I found an exercise where you take a story that's rather short and you write pinpoint the exact same story from the other character's perspective.
Oh, yeah.
So if they have dialogue, the dialogue has to be exactly the same. And I took Sarah's amazing story that she wrote, and I wrote it from the son's perspective. And there was so much dialogue that it had to line up.
You know who did that really well? Orson Scott Card did that with Ender's Game, and then he came back from Bean's story, Ender's Shadow. And
yes.
and you see it in
so
TV
many of the
shows
same
all
beats.
time.
I loved when he did that.
Yeah.
With Bean, and he kind of told the whole story from his point of view.
And it worked
very, very
so well.
good.
Yeah. And what a great exercise. I mean, it really was fun. It was a
absolutely.
totally new experience.
All right, so the next part of the story has been written by our good friend Katie here, who has been a part of our writers group for a long time now. And she comes in and out whenever she can. She does a lot of other cool stuff like D&D and drawing and
Building canoes.
yeah. So we were happy.
Canoe? It's probably not really a canoe.
It was a kayak, and
kayak,
we
sorry.
couldn't make it happen.
I'm so sorry.
After,
And then she builds knives.
Yeah.
Razors.
Stores them. Yeah.
So,
I did a straight razor restoration.
Yeah.
So we were very happy to be able to, get her to write the next section of the story, and I think you guys are gonna really like it. Give you a little teaser there to stick around for the end of this episode when she reads her story. But right now we just want to give you kind of an idea of who Katie is. You've been, coming in and out of these writer groups for about 3 years now since Jessica brought you around.
I think so. I thought it was longer
Maybe-
than
yeah, I
that,
guess
but
it
I
was
haven't
probably
been coming
longer.
regularly until last year, I think.
Right.
But yeah, the faces, places has certainly changed.
Yeah.
And glad to have stuck around. Y'all are really cool.
We like to think so.
Yeah.
We try.
Are you comparing us to someone? No, don't answer that.
My writing experience is a little different than everybody else's here. I do more short stories, and when I'm not doing like a fantasy stuff, I really enjoy creative nonfiction essays, which I'll need to bring by sometime. I haven't written one in a while, but those are just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I do a lot of just descriptive, introspective things, and that really fits. But most of my writing is actually just written role plays, and so that's just a lot of world building, and I can really focus on characters. And I've been writing since I was 12, and I've been making comics since I don't know. The oldest one I've got was when I was 8. It was about a slug
And you
superhero.
still have that around?
I still have it somewhere.
That's cool.
A slug
awesome.
superhero. I want
With
to see
his
this.
snail sidekick.
That is so
Is he a
fun.
superhero 2 slugs, or just that he was a slug?
The slug is the superhero.
I just told Asher this morning, we were walking out of my mom's house and there was a snail. And I was like, you know what would be so cool if there was a superhero snail?
Yeah.
With a slug friend, because he hates slugs, he's terrified.
Oh, slugs are
That's
so
so
cool.
cool.
They fought an evil black widow spider, and she was
Yes.
terrible.
Yeah.
And I'm not showing it to you guys.
Oh, come on.
Now, that is the big part of who you are and what your writing is about, is the visual aspect of it. You're an artist, and that plays into what you write and your style of writing.
Definitely. My current 2 projects are a children's picture book story about a small badger. His name is Nicholas Barkley, and he's an explorer, and he's very imaginative and creative. And he started off as a character in my sketchbook, and 20 pages of drawing this kid later, I was like, well, he's already got a personality. I might as well just
He was
write
popping
stories.
out as a character.
Yeah. So working on thumbnails for that, and my long-term side project is a webcomic / graphic novel called The Bone Breaker, and that's I'm writing the script for that, still doing world building. There's a lot of questions that have to be asked and figured out, and
but the main character is a woman.
Mm-hmm. So the Bone Breaker, the premise is a woman she's a new mother. She has to leave. She doesn't have to. She chooses to leave her nomadic tribe to go search this desert for her missing husband. And the stories deals on themes of grief and like community identity. With strong resurrection themes. Like it's a story about death pulling into life and that cycle, and like there's a literal death, and then there's all the symbolic ones that bring out the life of the character and expand, and all within the context of a journey. And
in a graphic form.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get beautiful picture layouts and spreads of these things happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. And then I know, to kind of switch back to your children's story, you like to do a lot of anthropomorphic type characters.
Yeah.
Where it's an animal that's also very human-like characteristics and qualities. And that makes me think of a story from years ago called Watership Down, and I can't help but think that's probably a story that you like, or at least you can identify
it's a little bit
with.
of a grimdark thing.
Darker than what
so Nicholas is more in the vein of like Wind in the Willows.
That's a good thing to point out. Yes.
With the Redwall series by Brian Jakes was so formative, and just never got over it. So
I have been trying to get my son to read that series forever.
Start him with Mossflower.
He won't.
What?
It's a totally different discussion, but he won't read what I want him to read. That's part of the. Maybe if you
one
tell
of us
him,
will
if your
give it
cool
to
writer
him,
friend suggests
yes,
it.
maybe.
If you say you don't like it, I'll read it.
No, it's just he's so. I don't know where he gets it from, but he's so stubborn.
No idea.
But he's just stubborn. He's got to be his thing, right?
Yeah.
So So yes, maybe if you tell him, oh, this is so great, maybe he'll.
Yeah.
So, a little behind the scenes question. How was your experience jumping into the middle of this and trying to pick up a story that we had all been writing in our own pieces for this Boneyard, not Bone Breaker, but Boneyard?
Yeah.
How was that for you?
It was interesting. This is the very first time I have ever written a story in first person point of view.
Oh, yeah.
And trying to pull out pieces and contact everybody. Okay, what happened when and who did this, and just trying to mapping out a timeline of when these things happen so I don't mess it up. It's fun.
Evie is very good at that, by the way. Evie has been spearheading a lot of the, I don't know what you call it, like the,
Documentation.
Hey,
the documentarian,
Oh. She, in Redwool terms, she is our recorder.
But yeah, I'm excited to get into the story. So unless you have anything else you want to talk about for your own writing.
The Expanse is really good, and I'm watching a playthrough of Detroit Become Human, and it's really awesome. And I wish I had the console to play the game myself, but it's a story. It's a story game.
The Expanse, yeah.
Yeah, The Expanse 2 is great. But yeah, that's all.
Okay, well, let's get into the story then.
The Boneyard, Episode 11. Mama Bear changed her mind about us sitting down for dinner as soon as we stepped into the light. I caught Troy smirking at her thinly veiled frown, and I couldn't blame either. We stank, and God knows what we look like or how she missed it when we first walked in. Doc, why don't you show our guests to the bathroom where they can wash up? Mama Bear said. The frown vanished, and she smiled like the hostess on one of those cooking shows, all sweet and kindly. Doc twitched a grin and led us to the small bathroom down the hall. It was the first time we'd had a chance to breathe since everything went down. When I looked in the mirror, I could hardly recognize myself looking back at me. I looked savage, with ash and dirt tinting my skin, and blood freckled the side of my face and hair. There were chunks of something in my hair, and for a moment I hung there thinking about how much work it was going to be to get it all out before I really realized, that we got Carl Jr. killed back in the Boneyard. We got a man killed, and here I was worrying about how to wash his blood and ash away. What had we done? The water ran down the sink in dark veins, and I scrubbed up my face and arms till the skin was raw and the water was running clear again, and I could see the dark bags under my eyes. We were in deep trouble, way out in the middle of who knows where with some lady and her bruiser who had more of those stones. With the military and the cops nipping at our heels, dead folk in our wake, Troy's broken leg miraculously healed, and in only a few hours, any chance I'd ever have of getting that cutlass or going back to living a normal life was nothing more than a pipe dream. All I wanted to do was run away somewhere and sleep. I left the bathroom and Troy met me just outside the door. I could tell he'd been thinking too. Walt watched us from the other side of the hall. Doc wasn't around. "You good?" Troy whispered, and for the first time in a long time I saw something close to concern. "Are you?" I replied, and this time it wasn't sarcastic. Troy shook his head. "To be real, I'm trying not to freak out a little. What do you think they want?" "I don't know, but I think we're gonna find out." "I ain't gonna tell them anything," Troy said. He shot a glance at Walt, who gave a hesitant nod. "But if we want to know what this is about, what these things are," I said, "we may have to give them something in return." Walt stepped toward us, shoulders hunched and head low like he was afraid Mama Bear was gonna jump us. "But do we?" he said. Troy and I both shot him blank stares. "I mean, do we want to know? Maybe we can leave it at that, give them whatever it is they want, and go home. This is more than I bargained for, Deb." I straightened and held his gaze. "Unless these rocks have some time-traveling powers, I don't think we can go home, Walt." "But..." Mama Bear called for us from the main room. "Are you all ready to eat? Food's hot and only getting colder." I turned back to Troy and Walt. "Let me do the talking. Walt, I want you to help me keep things straight. Troy, you look for a way out. Just in case. Okay?" "Okay," Troy said after a moment, but it was enough for me. Mama Bear was waiting for us at the table. Doc sat at her left, Eamon on her right, and a spread of spaghetti, garlic bread, and salad lay before us. The bowl of stones glowed dimly in the middle. Mama Bear smiled. "That looks much better. Come eat and I'll talk. I'll send Eamon to get you something clean to wear after dinner. You'll have to excuse our lack of preparation. We didn't expect to host guests tonight." "Please," she said, "help yourselves." And we did. The adults were lucky to get a plateful in after we scooped up all we could. It had been dinner before the race since any of us last had a full meal. We all ate in silence for a while, and about the time Troy was reaching for thirds, Mama Bear pushed her plate away and began. "Now, I have it from reputable sources that you three found yourselves some interesting stones recently." She paused and none of us said anything. "And someone had the clever idea of adding it to the fuel mixture of a car?" Silence again, but Walt's eyes turned toward me. Mama Bear took a long look at us and then smiled. "No need to be coy. The exact details aren't on the evening news just yet, but it's public knowledge in certain circles." "What's it to you?" Troy said around a mouthful of noodles. I had been led to believe that what we have here, Mama Bear gestured to the bowl and her necklace, were all that remained of the only known collection of Bemin stones. So, you're a collector, I said. Mama Bear smiled. Technically, I suppose so, though I would consider myself to be more of a protector. What are you protecting them from? I think the better question to start off with is, why are we protecting them? You all have seen and experienced what these stones are capable of. They restore health and give life. They enable supernatural strength and quickness. We knew about their explosive capabilities, though, admittedly, you all caught us by surprise when you mixed it with the fuel. I saw Doc shifting in his seat, face twitching with excitement. It was an impressive maneuver and proves that the Bemin stones still have more to reveal to those who hold them. Since ancient times, those that would use them for wrong have been hunting for them. No one remembers where they originated, but stories of them are as old as the land. The Muskogee and the Cherokee tell the oldest stories, of magic stones in the foreheads of the horned serpents. As the tribes were to move, the stones traveled southwest, where the Aztec called them Tenochtitlan, the seeds of the sun. She ignored Troy's smirking and continued to spite him. The Mayan thought they were from the blood of the gods. By the time the Spanish came and killed everyone, the Caribbean peoples knew them as the Bimini, the source of the fountain of youth. Somebody gasped, and it might have been me. Walt's eyes were wide, jaw dropped. Troy just squinted at Mama Bear. You're telling me that these things are from the fountain of youth? He said. Mama Bear nodded. They purified the water, which gave it its power. Without the stones, however, the fountain's not got anything to it, I finished. And to think we put it in our additive. Troy cracked a grin. We have got to make more power juice. My reports suggest that the military found fewer stones than they were expecting, Mama Bear continued. Only a handful. They think that the three of you hid the rest somewhere. We all paused. And you think the same thing? Yes. It is in everyone's best interest to retrieve them and put them in safekeeping. You know how the government is. Do you really want the military experimenting with them and using them? Imagine what war would be like in the future. Think of the ways these things could be used in the street. A shard could cause far more damage than a grenade. Super serums, like in those comics, could be manufactured. And there are worse people than the U.S. government after the Bemin stones. And why should we trust you to hold them, I said. We don't know nothing about you. Smart. But it was Eamon's people who were the original guardians of the stones. They were the ones to move them from the Mississippian tribes to the southwest when famine threatened them. His people carried them out of Tenochtitlan before the Spanish sieged the city, then sailed to the islands after the Mayans finally fell. Eamon's grandfather was the one who brought them back to the south in the hold of a pirate ship in the 1600s, and Eamon's father who saw the collection stolen during the Civil War. Walt did the math. But that means he's got to be 112, Mama Bear concluded. Eamon, guardian protector, fixed us all with a stony look. He didn't look a day older than 40.
Right, good job, Katie.
Good
Very
job,
nice.
Katie. Yay!
So now you've got some options for us, and we're gonna give you listeners these options, one after the other, and you will see what you guys do with them.
All right. Option 1. Deb asks, what do you want from us? Option 2. Troy asks, who else is after the stones? Option 3. Walt asks, how did you get involved?
So you're getting to choose what character says what dialogue. So each character kind of has a different line of thinking, a different thought process behind their dialogue, and you, our listeners, get to choose, what is it, what do you want to hear? Who do you want to ask, and what sort of vein of direction do you want the story to go?
Yeah, so basically, because of the 1,500 word limit, she kind of stopped in the middle of the conversation.
Yeah.
Right, and gave us, the kind of the reveal there at the end that Eamon is really old, and obviously that makes total sense. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Because if he really was, like, if the stones can do some of these things we've been saying they can do, then, maybe he's, can live longer and all that kind of stuff. So, so we're picking up the conversation next? Like,
Right.
where is the conversation going? And so these are the three options of the question that's going to start off the conversation next, and some of the questions that can be answered. So let's do them again. What are the three?
Option 1. Deb asks, "What do you want from us?" Option 2. Troy asks, "Who else is after the stones?" And option 3. Walt asks, "How did you get involved?"
So those are your three options, and that's what you're going to have to be able to choose from voting, is each character having their own specific line to say, and you guys are choosing which one it is. So remember to go out and vote. You can find the voting links on our Facebook page and real easily on our webpage, www.brewandink.com. And, I think that wraps up this episode. And so until next time, always remember to raise a glass to inspiration.
Yes.
And, feel free to leave a like, a comment, a subscribe, anything on our Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, webpage, and we'll get back to you guys. Good
Cheers.
night. Cheers. Tonight's episode brought to you by Red's Apple Ale. It has a natural apple flavor with a caramel color and a crisp apple taste. Not a sponsor. And Old Smoky Tennessee Moonshine. They make really good cherries. Also not a sponsor.